filter out the best of you, right? We need a question for Raza. If you have a question for Raza, step up to the mic. If you have a question for Akil, step up to the mic. If you have a question for Yamna, step up to the mic. If you have a question for Hamid, step up to the mic. If you don't have a specific question, don't step up to the mic. You can't have general questions. And I'm going to call up who has a question for who, and of course for Taimur as well. So, I'm going to start. Who has a question specifically? I'm going to bring you, yes, this is me being very militarized. I am going to be undemocratic. Who has a question for Hamid Mir specifically? He's come a long way. We need to ask him. Question. Go ahead, madam. Please introduce yourself. Please be brief. Please add your question to the question mark. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Lori Watkins, I'm a foreign affairs and political analyst, and my question is a two-part, but it's short. The case completion rate in the Pakistani justice system is very low, which means that the ordinary man or woman cannot access justice for basic civil and criminal cases. The separation of constitutional and civil courts do nothing to help this. So is it at all possible that perhaps the critiques are arbitrary? And the second part is, also creating a chief of defense forces is a global standard of the military. So why is it such a big deal right now for Pakistan to do so? Please explain. Thank you.
You asked two questions actually, one about the judicial system and other about the Chief of Defence Staff. So most of the people who are supporting this idea of appointing General Asim Munir as Chief of Defence Forces, they are giving the example of India. They say that there is a Chief of Defence Staff in India. So we have defeated India in May 2025. So we have to introduce this office in Pakistan. So this is their logic. But I will come to your question about the judicial system. You see, you are talking actually about the lower judiciary. The common man in Pakistan cannot access the high courts and Supreme Court because the fees of the lawyers are very high. They are very expensive. But even if they can afford the fees of the lawyers, they will not get justice in short time. Maybe in 6 months or 1 year is in my view, a very short time. But I have filed petitions in Supreme Court and High Court. I can give you one example. That I filed a petition in the Supreme Court of Pakistan about the accountability of media, and I produced myself that I am ready for the accountability, but you should investigate not myself, but all the prominent TV anchors and the owners of the media houses. So that case in Supreme Court of Pakistan took at least 7 years, and ultimately there was a code of conduct. Supreme Court of Pakistan enforced it through Pakistan Electronic Media Regulatory Authority, but they never investigated me, they never investigated anyone else. And for the inquiry of the assassination of our colleague Arshad Sharif, I filed a petition in Islamabad High Court. Last year in August, they said that we have reserved the judgment, we will announce it very soon. And after 1 year, they made an announcement in this August 2025. You know what was the decision? They said, we reject the petition after 1 year. So this is the system, and the common man cannot get justice even from the lower court. So we need the massive judicial reforms, and the massive judicial reforms can only be done by a genuinely elected parliament, not like current parliament.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Inshallah. Okay, right, next question.
Correct misinformation that so quickly, Chief of Defense Forces is a tri-service position that is responsible for strategic planning, integration. In no other country, at least not a democracy, is the Army Chief of Staff also the Chief of Defense Forces. Not in India.
Yep, that's right.
So this is just a fiction. It has nothing to do with military effectiveness. It is basically jointness for that matter, or the integration of the command. It is just a naked power grab for the military to sort of formalize its de facto hegemony over the Navy and the Air Force.
Thank you. Excellent point. Okay, next question has to be very specific, very short. We're running out of time.
Question for Mehlaqa.
We don't have follow-up questions from Yusuf, sorry. Next question has to be for Yamna Rizvi. Do you have a question specifically for Yamna Rizvi? Please step up to the mic, introduce yourself, be brief, and with a question mark. No diatribes, please.
My name is Dr. Naila Bhatt, and I worked for women's health and reproductive health in Pakistan and Canada. So my question, Yamna, is, as a, working for women reproductive health and rights, why hasn't the, the Western feminist movement supported the female prisoners, which are, in Pakistan? Not only that, the Palestinian women that are suffering day and night, they're being killed. The movement that you talked about, Mera Jism Meri Marzi, nobody came out in the street for all those political prisoners who are in jail, and there are thousands of them. So that's my question.
Thank you.
I'm trying to figure out how to answer this. I mean, look, I think it was mentioned earlier in one of the panels, it's about solidarity, and the women that I've met in those movements in Pakistan have spoken about female prisoners and their reproductive, health issues. They've also spoken about, Palestinian women who are imprisoned. I'm sorry if that's been your experience, that you haven't seen that, but I have. And I've seen women, do organizing to make sure that women who are in prison get equipment that they need for menstruation purposes, whatever it may be, for sanitary things. I haven't, in my experience, seen that, and I'm sorry that you've had that experience.
Okay, thank you. A quick question, be brief, for Professor Aqil Shah, please. This is for the PTI Walas to exact their revenge. Good moment.
Unfortunately, that will not serve the purpose. My name is Asif Naqvi, and I have this question for specifically Aqil Shah Sahab. And it's not to support the current structural degeneration that we just saw a day or 2 days ago. So it's not in any shape to support that. Yet, when we talk about democracy and the future of democracy, don't we see the current state of democracy in the Western world and also in the other places? India, you have a populist person who's successful in his democracy, and yet you have all sorts of problems. US has Trump. Europe has all kinds of those ultra-national, anti-immigration leaders as well. So when we talk so much about democracy, do we not see this aspect of democracy in the global stage?
Thank you. Professor.
So you have to be a democracy first in order to backslide. The cases you cited are consolidated democracies where the quality of the institutions and the erosion of democratic norms is happening. Pakistan is not a democracy. So Pakistan's case is different because there's one institution that basically dominates pretty much every branch of government and is, as somebody said, is a state above state. So I don't think the comparison holds, but yes, democracy is in a crisis around the world, but I don't think Pakistan is, the comparison with the US or India is valid here, because in neither of these countries is the army the sort of Godzilla that basically crushes everyone else.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, last 2 questions. One has to be for Raza. I'll take Raza's and then we let our exit-controlled friend, Taimur Jhagra, take it away in the end. I hope you have a question for him. Do you have a question for Raza Rumi?
I have.
Okay, go ahead, madam.
All right, Mehlaqa samdani, hi Raza. And so this is for you and also all of the liberal elites that WAJAHAT was talking about, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way at all. But I'm just wondering if we can forget PTI and Imran Khan for a moment. Would you agree that military authoritarianism is a cancer in Pakistan that needs to be addressed? Do you believe that it is wrong to intimidate judges by placing cameras in their bedrooms? Do you believe it is wrong to have enforced disappearances of the Loch and Pashtun nationalists? Do you believe it's wrong to haul women out in the middle of the night and throw them in prison? Because if you do do believe that those things are wrong, then you, Raza, sitting here in the US, have that obligation, because you have that veneer of protection here that you don't have in Pakistan, to speak out for those rights, irrespective of who those people are.
That's fine. Thank you, Mehlaqa. Of course, people have a right to. Whatever you said, obviously, I agree with what you say. My writings are on record. You can go online and check that. I mean, I also edit paper, a digital outlet. I have a colleague here, Marvi, who consistently reports on human rights almost every other day, if not every day. And the thing is that we do raise voice against all these issues, whether it's the curtailment of traditional powers, or the authoritarianism, or the way the current regime is treating, not just the PTI, but also other groups like the Baloch Yakjati Council. I think all of that is in record. I think the problem is that a lot of us are not card-carrying members of the PTI.
No,
and I think, no, you're not. I'm not talking about you. It's not about you, madam. It's about a lot of people on social media who come up with these narratives are very vocal. Many of them have their DP as the picture of Imran Khan. Now we don't, because we are not. And we have to be true to our political sort of affiliations, and in particular, when you are a journalist or a writer or whatever, you have to keep a distance away from one political party or the other. But your point is well taken, and I think it is absolutely right that all of us in our own ways have to not only support the cause of human rights and democratic evolution in Pakistan, and do as much as we can.
Thank you. And I completely second Raza's publications, Raza's works, and even Raza's blog is quite clear about his unequivocal stand for human rights. In fact, he's not just a friend, he's also, as I said earlier, a victim of actual terrorism against the dismantling of those human rights. So thank you, Raza. Thank you. Thank you for being so brave. But I will also say that I agree with Mehlaqa that there is not enough deep-throated support for the one and the only Imran Ahmad Khan Niazi across the board in most liberal circles, with lots of caveats and ifs and buts. Last question is for Taimur. Are you still with us? Have you come down?
Yes.
All right. Last question for the one and only, the former finance minister of the KP, the former health minister of the KP, and of course, currently exit control. A very, very rare commodity, ladies and gentlemen. Ask me a question. Who's got a question for Taimur Jhagra?
My name is Ariba Khalna, I am a journalist. My question for Taimur Jhagra is that do you think that Asim Munir represents a significant departure from the history of military dictatorship in Pakistan? We have seen dictator after dictator. But do you think in this specific case, given the 27th Amendment, is this exceptional? Is this different in any way? And a follow-up with that would be, do you see a future for Pakistan where the livelihood and the lives of people in Pakistan are not decided in the corridors of power in Washington, D.C., but by the people of Pakistan?
Thank you so much. Thank you. Excellent question.
That puts me into trouble because of his interviews, which some people tell me are partially responsible, WAJAHAT, for my troubles. And now Ariba wants to get me into trouble. But let me just answer that. I think what is happening today is a departure from past military interventions, in the sense that I think incentives are different. I remember the latter years of the Zia martial law. I wasn't born when Zia took over. I certainly remember the Musharraf episode. And I think that when a martial law regime takes over, the night after, 10th Corps takes over PTV and takes over the country, they have every incentive to try and present what's happening in the country on day 2 onwards as normalcy. The signal they want to send is that the constitution still exists, right? And that this may be a military setup, but that it's actually functioning as close as possible to a civilian setup. In the current hybrid setup, what we have is a setup that needs to use the constitution and the law to give itself legitimacy. Because we have the facade of a democracy. That facade may be wearing very loose, right? But that is still being used, and hence what is different is that every day you see that law being broken. You see the people resisting in a way that they never have before, and I think particular testament to that is what happened on February 8th, when the way that people voted, after 12 months of political engineering or so, was incredible. And that's why you had on the night of February 8th, a situation where election results have to be engineered, where the proof of that engineering still exists on the Election Commission website as we speak, right? So the people resisted. But because of that, you have to continue to face blow after blow that impacts what we can say and what we can't say. That impacts that indeed when for the first time judges tended to push back on the establishment opinion, the entire judicial structure of the country was torn up. None of these things have been perfect, but none of that is an excuse, as many circles have, including the parties in power, to say that because of the excesses of the judiciary in the past, the 27th Amendment that breaks the back of any hope that the judicial system can offer justice to Pakistan, not to PTI, to the Maran Baloches of the world, to the PTMs of the world, right, and act as a check and balance, that entire system is broken. But it has to be done because in this case, when you're using a democratic facade to try and perpetuate rule, you need to break law after law after law. And I think the consequence of this really is, and this goes back, I've thought about this a lot, right? It's not the positions that parties take that is important. Because this democracy that Pakistan has been for the last 80 years or so has sent an incentive to every conventional politician, and those politicians exist in every party, to say, work with the system to gain acceptability. Right? And that's why you see so many contradictions in every party.
Right.
If we have to move forward, then it is the politicians in every political movement, in every party, as well as voices in other stakeholder groups, that have to rise above the norm and say, it's not just my coalition group or my party or the stakeholder group I'm a part of that I stand for. I stand for certain principles, period. There's enough of us.
Right, Taimur. We have
and
to
I think that
last
when
word.
we last sentence, yeah, I'm just closing. There's enough of us. And when we actually learn to push back together, because the system's fragmented all of us, we will fight back. And it will be successful because the future of Pakistan depends on it.
Thank you. All right. So, firstly, my take and my last take, after which we begin our last segment. You heard different opinions. It's very difficult to express opinions in a room this diverse, in a room this far, in a room this perhaps monitored. The last few days, and especially the last few hours, we've been held accountable, even by people we thought were our friends. We've been blamed for being backed by the ISI. We've been blamed to be backed by forces that are antithetical to democracy. And I first urge you to look right or left and try to find the nearest ISI agents to you and make sure that you take a nice selfie with them, firstly. I haven't met one in a while, but I'm really looking forward to you connecting with them. Look left and right, you might find someone. So thank you, ISI, for being here. Make friends. Secondly, critically, crucially, it's very difficult to converge on one democratic platform or one platform about democracy. That's why we have elections. Now, there's no elections in this room, obviously. But what you have is a myriad of opinions, which, by the way, have come from bullet wounds, from assassination attempts, from bans, from exiles. These are people who have paid with the price of their lives even, or close to losing them. So you need to firstly understand that that is the future of democracy. Right there, the diversified history of Pakistan. Right there. Secondly, crucially and lastly, the 1973 ka Eid, as we call it,